Alright, welcome back. This tutorial is going to be on how to view and render your already created model. So as you can see, we have this model that we just created. We're going to go ahead and we're going to click the View tab on the ribbon. And you can see you have a couple different options here. So we're going to go ahead to the house and we're going to click on the drop down menu of the camera. We're going to click Camera. Now you can either create a camera in a 3D view or you can go to the first floor, which I typically like to do. I'd like to do it from a floor plan. So we're going to create a 3D view from a camera. And we're going to click out here somewhere in the topo. And we're going to drag it across our building. Now how far you drag it is the view of the camera. So you want to make sure you drag it past your building. And then you can see the angles. That is your cone of vision. So you want to make sure that your building is fully in that cone of vision. And if you click, it then creates your 3D perspective. And again, you can shade it by coming down here and click shaded, or the shortcut is SD. And there you go. You can shade your model. Now what we can do is from this we can render. So if you go up here to the View tab, you can click the Render, and this Render dialog box comes up. Now there's a bunch of different things you can do with rendering. You can select the different quality. So typically I would recommend draft for the beginning. You can also set your resolution. So if you're presenting electronically, you can use the screen resolution, or you can use a printer resolution if you want to create prints for boards and such. You can also change the lighting scheme. So if we're doing exterior rendering, we're going to do exterior sun only. You can also set the types of sky. You can also set the sky as an image or a color. You can also adjust the exposure, but you can do this afterwards too, and I'll show you that. That's one of the few nice things about Revit. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to render this draft. Now as this rendering, just keep in mind that this is a rough draft. You're just kind of getting the idea of what the rendering is going to look like. So it's going to be very, very fast and just a generic base rendering. So as you can see, it's not very high quality, but you can get a sense of the lighting and what's basically going to be in the rendering. Now make sure once it's rendered, if you actually want this render, down here under Image, you want to save this to the project. You can name it whatever you want. You can hit OK. And then you can, right from this dialog box, you can export it as JPEG, bitmap, TIFF, or a PNG. Save that. But say you exit out of this, as you can see the rendering disappears. But since you saved it, you can see in your project browser down here on the left hand corner, if you open up the rendering tab, it saved the rendering in your project. So it will always be here as long as you have your project, as long as you saved it. Now you can also see on the left hand side, your 3D view is always saved. So once you create that camera, it's saved as well. So if we open up the rendering dialog box, say I want a really detailed rendering, but I want to make sure it's good, and you're not sure what part of the rendering, and you know what part of the rendering you want to see. You can render by region. You see this red box shows up. So what you can do is you can click that and you can make the detailed region that you want to render smaller. Then you can zoom in just to that region. You can up the quality. Say we're going to do best, and you can render just this region. So this will allow you to see a detailed part of your building and how it's going to look on best quality. So you know that you'll actually be seeing the render more clearly this way. But keep in mind the higher the quality, the longer time. Also the size will take longer depending on the size. So that's why I'm just doing it on screen right now to be able to show you the different types. Also, while this is rendering, I'm going to explain that right now I have it set on screen resolution over here. But if we set it to printer, it'll give you a default size. And some people are question why that default size. If you want to make that size bigger, before you render it, you can adjust the size of the view itself by clicking on the box that defines the view, and we'll show you this in a second. So we're going to cancel out of this rendering. So if you zoom back out on your view and click this, you can go to size crop. Now if you change your field of view, that'll actually distort the image itself, making your cone of vision larger, which you don't typically want to do because it's not true. But if you only want to change the scale, click scale, and say I want this rendering to be 10 inches wide, you can type that in, and it'll automatically adjust the height and lock it. So now this rendering will be 10 inches by 7.5 inches. Or we can change it to, say, 5 inches. Make sure scale is selected, hit OK, and now it'll render at 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. So that's a typical rendering from a camera view. We can also do this fancy little trick. Say you want sectional perspectives or sectional floor plan, or sectional perspective floor plans. If we go to a 3D view, you can come over here and scroll down in the properties palette, click section box. What section box does is it brings up this transparent box in Revit, and you see you have all these handles. If you click the handle and move it, it will cut your building and topo surface to wherever you want. So now you can create sectional perspectives. So this will give you a sectional axon, and this view will save if you right click your view cube and you click save view. You can save it as whatever you want. And now again, if I go to my camera and click back on that saved view, it will always be there. Now if I want a sectional perspective, I can do much the same, except I go into the view that I previously created from the camera. And I can also come down here and click section box. And if I zoom out, whoops, sorry, you can see I can pick here and drag. Can drag this in here, and now I have a sectional perspective of that same view, and I can go ahead and render this now too as well. So there's a few tricks of how to do that. Now say I want a rendered floor plan, we can go back to our 3D view and we can create, we're going to shade this by pressing SD. We're going to create another section box, and we're just going to bring this down, cutting through our building. Click top view, and now this doesn't tell us very much because if we're on our top view, it's much like a floor plan, but we can go ahead and we can click the shadows button. So down on the left hand side, it's a circle. Right now they're turned off. If we click it, it turns it on. Now you can also do this in a floor plan, but the good thing about section box, the 3D view, you can now angle it so people truly get the sense of your building. Then again, you can right click this view cube here and click save view, and now it'll always be here in your 3D views. Now view cube's a fun navigational tool. So again, it can get you different sides by clicking top or any corner of the view cube itself. You can also, if you use your mouse wheel, depending on where it is, you can orbit and such over it. But I like to just do it in the browser right here. But you can do it over the view cube. Now say you want to create an axon for some, like an exploded axon. So again, we're going to do, we already have the base axon. So we're going to create another 3D view section box, but we're going to do this at the top this time. So we're going to drag the bottom up to cut through part of the roof, or through part of the building. Now if we go to our View tab, and again, if you double click, you can just keep double clicking to get back to your full ribbon. You can create a sheet. So I'm going to not use any title box because I don't want to. So we're going to hit none and hit OK. See, it just gives you this blank piece here. So I'm going to remember to save my view of this. So now I know that my two views that I want to drag onto this sheet are 3D Ortho 2, 3D Ortho 1. I want to make sure they're oriented the same way. So I'm going to just keep clicking my view cube to get around to the same orientation. So here you can see that they're oriented the same based on this door. And now this will also show you some functionality of Revit. If you click the door in this view, go back to this view, the door is still selected. So if you can't see it in one view, click it in another. So in the perspective of the 3D of this, that's another way that you can move it if you couldn't see it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back to our sheet that we created. So again, that's over here, and if you click the sheets, you can see you have one created unnamed sheet. So we're going to just click, drag our view of our bottom onto the sheet. Then we're going to click our second view, drag it on to the sheet just right above it. And now you can see if you move these up or down, you can change the type of exploded axon based on levels. Now say you don't want these labels here, you can also change these, because right now you can see I have a viewport selected. So the viewport, I can change the type, so I can click edit type. If I duplicate this and rename it, say we'll do viewport 2, but I'm going to rename it to no title. You can hit OK. And if you see down here, it says, do you want to show the title in this type? And I'm going to hit, click it and click the drop down and hit no. I'm going to hit apply, OK. Now you can see that that title disappeared. I don't actually want either of these to change. So since you saved that viewport as different, you can come over here and you can see now no title in the viewport is an option. So now there's no viewport, and you now have a exploded axon right here. So that's some typical view features of Revit. So you now have a few fun ways to create views within Revit. Now say in this section perspective you want the section to be a different color. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click the Manage tab. We're going to come over here to Object Styles. Now as you can see, it tells you everything everything about the different objects. So right now you can see the walls, basic color is black. So this doesn't typically change too much. This is more for if you're displaying something. You can play around with that. But we're actually going to go back to visibility and graphics. So say you want everything that's cut to be black. Well, you're going to actually have to do this by different categories. So you want your walls. You can see if you have a projection or surface, this will make the edges of your walls, the faces different. But we're gonna go ahead and click walls, and we want the cut of the wall to be different, and we want the pattern. So we're gonna actually click the override button, and we're gonna click a color. So we're gonna do red. Then you want to do a pattern of solid fill. So we're gonna hit OK. And I just erased it, so I'm going to do that real quick again. Color, red, pattern. So not only are walls cut, but there's a window that's cut in there, so I'm going to go ahead and change that as well. Solid fill. We also have floors, so we're going to go up to floors. We're going to change that to red. And we also have a roof, so we're going to go ahead and change that roof. We're going to hit apply, and as you can see now, everything that's cut has that red. And since we're in medium, you can see the detail of the wall is high, and sometimes that looks kind of funny if you're just trying to do a conceptual. So we can go ahead and change that to coarse, and now it's a little bit different. So that's a few view tips for Revit.